Hello and welcome to Todd versus
BBD.
Today we're going to be playing a little bit of Standard, and I got a little spicy one on my hands. Today I'm going to be playing Tom Ross's Blue-White Heroic deck that he took all the way to top 4 at the StarCityGames Standard Open in, where were we? Columbus, Ohio. I go to this every weekend, man. I don't even know where they're at anymore. I just GPS, type it in.
I mean, Ohio's an extremely forgettable location.
Come on, man. That's offensive to only people from Ohio, so we don't really care.
True.
Anyway, just joking aside, let's go and take a look at Tom's deck. Let's go and take a look at Tom's deck before we make anybody else mad at us. So.
Yep.
All right, so this deck is pretty similar to the types of decks we saw out of Theros Block Pro Tour. Just very generic, like cheap creatures, ways to target them so that you get the triggered abilities off the heroic. We have 12 pretty solid creatures that have the heroic ability, as well as 3 Seeker of the Way that has honorary heroic and prowess.
Yeah, like 1-turn heroic.
Yeah, but the upside is you get to gain a lot of life in matchups where gaining life is actually relevant. The one cool addition to the deck that I actually, when I saw this deck for the first time, I just kind of fell in love because I had my Boo Heliod's Pilgrim that I tried out in my blue-white artifact, Intel artifact deck. But Heliod's Pilgrim is something that just gives this deck a mini toolbox. It also gives us more virtual copies of our best cards, very similarly to how it gives you extra copies of Intel artifact. In this deck, it gives you more virtual copies of Ordeal of Thassa.
Yeah.
And as Jerry Thompson has explained, Ordeal of Thassa is basically just Jace the Mind Sculptor. Verbatim.
Yeah, I'm still on track. Keep going.
All
keep going.
All right.
I'm done there. Yeah.
So the deck is, full of these cheap creatures, but it also has a lot of utility. The Helix Pilgrims can get things like Singing Bell Strike to act as pseudo removal. It can get Aqueous Form to make your guy permanently unblockable until they either kill it or kill the Aqueous Form. We have one Ordeal of Heliod, which we can search up against matchups that are trying to deal us a lot of damage with things like Stoke the Flames. It's also great in racing situations against like Mantis Rider or things like that. One Stratus Walk to get over the green decks while continually drawing us cards and fueling everything. And then we have a bunch of ways to protect ourselves. 4 copies of God's Willing, and then the little bit slower but a little more powerful Feat of Resistance. So these 6 spells go a long way in making sure that whenever you start suiting up one guy with a lot of things, it's not going to die to a Hero's Downfall or an Abzan Charm or whatever. Unfortunately, these cards do not protect you from in-hostilities, which actually seen a big uptick in sideboards as of late in order to help fight things like Monogreen Devotion, Abzan Midrange, and things like that.
Do you think that if End Hostilities really kicks up in playability, that should just be a Johnny's Presence?
It's possible. I do like a Johnny's Presence, and we do have some on the board for the matchups that do have those. Personally, though, I think that if End Hostilities becomes a thing, this deck just is not very
bad
good.
Anyway. Yeah, that makes sense.
Mana base, pretty straightforward. 9 plains, 2 islands because we're base white. We have 4 Flutterstrand, Temple, and 1 Mana Confluence, as well as 2 Tranquil Cove to act as our dual lands to make sure we hit our colors. We don't really want to draw 2 Mana Confluence ever, which I think is the reason why we only play 1. But sometimes drawing 1 is okay because it does let you have a little more versatility in what kind of spells you can cast. Sometimes you have to double or even triple spell in 1 turn in order to get a huge advantage in Mana Confluence. The life loss matters less than being able to do that. Last but not least, 4 copies of Defiant Strike because it's just good.
Yeah, I actually think that card is... I played a little bit with the Just Guy Heroic combo deck, and that was just the best card in my opinion.
It was great. I mean, it's so much better than Dragon Mantle in the deck, and like in this deck specifically, it lets you do a lot of cool things, like being able to attack into like Corsair Crew Fix with either of these guys, and just spending 1 mana, killing their Corsair and drawing a card is great. It lets your favorite Hoplite be able to attack into Sylvan Caryatid, which is awesome. And then we also have 2 Eidolon Countless Battles because YOLO, make a big guy. I don't know. I kept asking Tom this past weekend when we were in Columbus. I'm like, yeah, what's this for? Like, why aren't you playing 4 if it's good? And he's just like, I don't know. Sometimes you just want to draw it. Classic Tom Ross. Anyway, guys, that's the main deck for Blue-White Heroic. Let's go and take a look at the sideboard, and then we'll get to battle. So as you can see in the sideboard, we have access to not very many creatures, but a whole lot of very situational spells.
Yep.
Namely, Erase, I think, is seeing a big jump in popularity in sideboards due to the Jeskai Ascendancy Heroic combo deck that won the StarCityGames Open in Oakland. I believe is Oakland.
Yep, Oakland.
Yeah, and Erase is just like pretty good against like mono green devotion or green black devotion, namely because they have things like Doom White Giant and Courser Crewfix, etc., etc. One more aqueous form to come in against decks that don't have a lot of removal. It's a great tutor target, but it's also nice to naturally draw it. So that you can make your guy unblockable on like turn 2 or 3 and start dealing large chunks of damage. They don't get to chump block with like, Hordling Outburst tokens, things like that. Ordeal of Heliod, number 2, comes in against red-based decks that don't have a lot of actual removal. Like, I don't think it would come in this matchup against Mardu because you have Crackling Doom and some other things that are pretty bad for me.
They're relying on like strikes and stokes though.
Yeah. 4 Seeker of the Way against Mono Red, 2 Laguna Band Trailblazer that come in against various burn decks like with lightning strikes and stuff. I think this guy's going to be pretty good against you today, actually, since a lot of your damage or a lot of your removal is burn based.
It survives anger and drown. That's important.
Yeah, that too. One thing to note is that the deck list from the open was incorrect. It said Laguna Band Elder, which was the 3/2 that gained some life, and a little bit of a typo action there, but yeah.
It's definitely not the Elder,
Yeah. 2 copies of Johnny's Presence to fend off in hostilities, a 4th Heliod's Pilgrim, and 2 Treasure Cruise against decks that have a lot of removal or discard or things to just like try to attrition you out. Having a way to just like gain card advantage through these 2 cards is great. And then 3 Stubborn Denial against any sort of slower control deck with a lot of removal. Probably going to be good today as well. Anyway, guys, that is Blue-White Heroic. That's all I got. BB's deck's boring on Mardu, but we'll be right back.
Nothing boring about Mardu.
Nothing. Not anything.